Hello everyone, this is Jasmina, and in this video I'm going to talk about selecting a new residence. So recently I've had several inquiries about helping individuals to find a new, not necessarily newly built, but a new place for them to live. Now, if you're also interested in a service such as this, either by me or by anybody else, it's totally fine, I don't care. There are you should know one thing: a decent analysis that is a basic analysis is not that much less expensive than a full analysis. Now, a full analysis usually will include more diagrams for you to look at, whereas you have to do basically all the same work for a basic analysis to say, is this the best house or this the best house, between two, as you do for a full analysis. So don't expect to have somebody do this really cheaply for you unless you're simply talking about stuff that you can do yourself. And this is basically what I'm going to talk about here. Things that you can do for yourself that will make it a lot easier for you to narrow it down so that you're not overwhelmed. So there are things you can check yourself, and I would prefer that people narrow it down to 2, maybe 3 choices at max, because I charge for each one of these because it's a lot of work. Now, the steps that I'm going to talk about here can help guide you when you start looking for a new place to live. And you can knock out many locations simply because they don't fit even the most simple basic needs. And then after that, that's when we start looking into more details. First thing you need to do is find the quad numbers for all residents who are going to be living there. And you're going to fall into one of 3 categories. Either everybody's going to be in a West group, or everybody's going to be in an East group, or you're going to have a mix. Some people will be in West, some people will be East group. And if there is a mix like that, the challenge is a little greater, but it's not insurmountable. Basically, if you're in a situation where you have East group and West group people in your family, you want to give the priority, that is, you're going to decide on the facing direction of the house by making it a good direction for the person who already has the largest income, because you don't want them to lose that. You don't want that to become a problem. You want them to continue to have good luck. The second priority is either to give it to the second income earner, and most houses today, or most households today, have that, at least in the United States. I really can't talk about elsewhere. But the other possibility could be a person who needs the help the most. And this could be because of health. This could be because of maybe you've got an adult child who is not able to get a job. So there'll be somebody else in your household that might have a greater need than the second income earner. So you have to decide on who needs the most help. Beyond, of course, the person with the largest income, you want to keep them in a good situation. Now, you want to give, okay. Now, I have analyzed several cases with mixed group families, and it does take a bit of balancing to do, but it can be done. And this is done, I've actually discussed and shown some examples of this. And if you watch my video, the 8 mansions, your best directions, I give examples of how I deal with cases where you have a mixed group. And you give everybody something good for them, but you focus usually on one particular person, if that's possible. Sometimes it's a bit tricky, but it can be done. Now, it's also very important to determine what your most significant need is. And by this, I mean you're going to have one of three categories. It's either going to be something to do with money, and that could include your job or your business if you run a business. And if that's the case, you're going to be focusing the residence facing direction on being the highest income earners success direction. And you get that from that 8 mansions video. Now, if it's health related, let's say you're reaching retirement and you're not going to be so worried about a job. Most people who get older, health is their most important thing. This can happen when you're younger too. It's totally fine. In that case, you focus on the resident facing the individual's health direction. And sometimes that can't really happen if two people have different qua numbers. But sometimes you will put the bed in a direction for health for one and the house facing for the other. That is usually very, very possible. So that is how you balance this. Now, if it's relationship related, maybe your career is going well, your health is fine, but you want to find somebody to spend the rest of your life with that will love you and you will love them, and it'll be a great relationship. Then you focus on the love and relationship direction. And often this is just in the bedroom. So it has to do with what direction your headboard is facing. And you can usually combine this relationship thing with either one of these, either health or the money, because this is a separate part. Here you worry about the facing direction of the house in general, and here you're looking at the headboard direction. If you are lucky enough, perhaps you can find a place that you can see water, and that can be a lake or a pond, and that's fantastic if they're natural. But a swimming pool can do. A river is usually treated quite a bit differently, but a river usually, or at least has a great potential to bring in good energy. So you should note whether or not you can see one. And every place will have some sort of higher ground, unless you live on the mountaintop and every other mountain surrounding you or every other hill is lower than where you are. Then you won't have this. But 99 point something % of places will have some sort of higher ground. Now, in Chinese, they use one word. That word applies to mountain, hills, or higher ground. So we're simply just looking at this. We want to know where it is with respect to the center of the house. And we can usually see this from a satellite view. Now, it does require a little bit of additional analysis to be certain, but if it's natural, like a mountain or a hill or higher ground, those things are all natural, they cannot hurt you. And you can't really create a hill or higher ground. It takes centuries to build up this energy. So that whatever's natural, that's what you look for when it comes to something like a mountain. If the lake or pond is natural, then you don't have to worry about it either. A swimming pool, which is always man-made, can be an issue in certain places, but there are ways to deal with this. And the river can also perhaps cause problems. So it's good to know whether you can see this, because that goes into the analysis. So that does need to be noted while you're looking for places. Now, most places you don't even notice there's higher ground, but if you look at a topography map, you can usually see it. Now, this is one thing that is actually probably the most important. You can narrow your choices down, but before you say this is a possibility, this has to be a place that you find appealing, that you can see yourself living. And I'm not talking about like you don't like the paint colors. Paint is easy to change. And even if you don't like the cabinets, I mean, as long as they are functional, you can live with them for a while. Oftentimes painting them makes them look a little better. But We're talking about you like the general layout of the house, you like the neighborhood, that you can see yourself living there and you would be okay with it. There'll probably be things you want to change, but it won't be something that is absolutely immediate, or it's not something that you can say, I just can't live here. I'm not comfortable here. If you're not comfortable in the place, cross it off your list. Don't even worry about it, even if it meets all the other requirements. If you don't feel good there, it's not worth looking at. Now, once you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 places, you can expedite the process of getting help and getting an answer of which one, and that can be quite important if you are looking to, if there's a bidding war going on, basically. So if you list the address so that your practitioner can look at it from the satellite, list everybody's Kwan number and Batsa. You don't have to give a birth date and time if you know what the Batsa is. That's totally good. But also, you also need to state what is your most critical need so they know where to focus. Now, if you do that when you either first contact me or anybody else, they will be very happy because you've already done a lot of work for them. And that saves them 2 or 3 emails. Now, the period of the building is quite important to know the charts. So finding out about the history of the building, if it's already built, that you want to move into, is actually crucial. Now, for an apartment or a condo, this is usually quite easy. You simply ask the manager or even your real estate agent. They probably know the answer. When was this place built? That will usually tell you the period. It can be harder in the house because there can be sometimes, under certain circumstances, there can be long gaps in people living in the house. And those gaps, if they happen after the period in which the house was built, can change the period of the house. And so this is something that you really have to investigate. And it's a lot easier for you to investigate if you live in a different country than the practitioner lives in, because this is, long distance phone calls. Perhaps it's not even the language could be a barrier. There could be a lot of reasons. Now, I've only done one analysis in the United States where I live. Every other analysis I've done has been in Europe or in Asia. And some of it's even been in the Southern Hemisphere. So, but it's very hard for me to interact that far away. And half of it is time because they're on the other side of the planet. Things to look for are foreclosures. They are usually noted in something called either a deed record search or a property history. Sometimes they even call it the property genealogy. Depends on where you are. But foreclosures are usually noted. And you can also usually tell about of inheritance. It has to do with how the deed is transferred. And you can get a lot of help from your real estate agent for this. But basically, if there's an inheritance and let's say within 6 months or so, the house is sold, often that means that the person inheriting it cannot live there, typically because they don't have a job there. So they have to sell the house. That will leave a long time, and foreclosures also leave a long period of time when there's nobody living in the house, and that can change the period. And there can be natural disasters, there can be all kinds of things that might make this happen. So you do have to do a little background, and it's a lot easier for you to do it in your location because especially if you've lived there for a while, you know what has happened through the years where you're living. Now, the more steps that you can provide to whoever you contact, the faster you can be helped. And again, this can be important if you are if you're worried about getting into a bidding war. Now, if you want the very best house for you and you can build it, so that means you're going to buy an empty lot, or you're going to be okay with a house that is so damaged that you know you're going to tear it down and rebuild, the best time to contact any practitioner is before you buy the land. Now, if you inherited it, that's a whole nother thing. But we're talking about when you're looking for a piece of land. So what we want to do is we want to find a piece of land that faces a direction that's going to give you the house facing direction that you need. 90+% of the time, this will be towards the road. So that can tell you a lot. So if your directions, if you're an East Group person, your good directions will be southeast, east, north, and south. So if you can have a lot that faces, that is the road from the center of the lot, you go towards the road, it's one of those 4 directions, that would be a potentially good lot for you. So then you can look at that. And then, of course, you want to see what else you can see in the area. Can you see any mountains? Can you see water? All that kind of stuff. And you can do a lot of that yourself. But again, it also has to be some place you can see yourself living, that you're okay with the neighborhood. The other good thing when you're going to be building the house is you can actually lay out the rooms in the best possible way for your particular needs. So you can put the home office in the best location. You can put the kitchen in the best location. All these kind of things. And that's a lot cheaper than having to redesign your whole house. So this is very, very, very helpful if you can do this. Now, these plans will be specific to your needs. So I can't just draw a plan and say, this is good for, let's say, a Quan number 1. There's several kind of houses a Quan number 1 can use. So it depends if they want a 2-story house, a 1-story house, a 3-story house. It's not straightforward. So this is why you have to be careful. And this is why once you know all this, the house can be designed to your specific needs, which can be different than everybody else's. Now, unfortunately, this often means a custom house build, which will be usually more expensive per square foot than a tract house or an existing house. So yes, this would be more money. Now, without a whole lot of money, if you have the time, or maybe you've got a kid who's interested in this, you can actually save a ton of money in just creating the building plans. I would say for less than $2,000, I learned how to do the program that is needed. Well, you don't absolutely need a program, but yes, it makes it a lot easier nowadays to create your building plans. And you can learn about the codes, and this is from classes at a community college level, except for the code that usually is a little higher. But you can learn a lot, and you can do a lot of this yourself, or maybe one of your teenage kids who's already interested in this. You can challenge them. You can do this for yourself. You cannot do it for others. So I can do the building plans for my own house. I cannot do it for you. So I can tell you where to put all the rooms and all that kind of stuff, but usually it requires somebody local to finish the plans to meet your local code, and to be able to interact directly with the people who do building permits. Now, some places are lucky they don't have to do all this, but Codes are there for a reason. Codes are there to keep you safe. And 99% of the codes that we have, let's say in the United States, they all came out because of a disaster where people were killed. You know, building codes can be a bit of a pain, but they actually have a real purpose, and that's to keep you as safe as possible. And every time another disaster happens, codes change. So that's basically it. I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope that if this is something you want to do, now you have some steps you can do to narrow it down so that you can get the help you want faster. These are simple things that you can do that really don't need my help because this information is quite readily available. But I'd like to thank you again for watching.